Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hotspur Huddle, where tonight we have a very action-packed show to dissect and go through. So there's been a lot of things that have been happening, especially over the weekend and the last couple of nights. But to do so, I'm joined by my amazing guests once again on this fine Wednesday. First of all, Wes, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, all good. Thank you, Holly. As you mentioned, we've got a lot to get through tonight, so not going to ramble on too much. But yeah, all good and looking forward to the show as always.
Lovely stuff. And we're also joined by the amazing Nelson. Nelson, how are you as well?
I'm good, Holly. Good to be back and just ready to talk football. But like you said, action-packed, so I'm ready.
Oh, yeah, we have got an awful lot to go through. But like always, this show is sponsored by the amazing Kofa. So, Wes, I'm going to let you fire away, my friend.
Yeah, so it's Kofa or Kickoff Football Academy, Milton Keynes. We run lots and lots of different football sessions for both boys and girls across the area. So if you feel like that your child could potentially be the next Dele Alli or Leah Williamson, then please get in touch with us, as we would love to help them achieve their goal of being the next Dele Alli or Leah Williamson.
Lovely. So make sure you go check out Kofa on all the socials. But let's kick off quite literally because, Wes, although I say that, at the weekend, both North London clubs didn't really do that as such. And we're going to start with, obviously, Spurs versus Newcastle. So what did you kind of make of it all? Or what do you think went wrong? Because there's quite a lot that went wrong in that game.
I think we probably as fans were feeling really confident going into it. Obviously, we know the problems that Newcastle have and the injuries that they have. But, you know, you look at their team, especially like midfield-wise, attacking-wise, they still had some really good quality in there. And I just think we started off probably as we have for the majority of the season. We were really good. But then typically we don't take a chance and all of a sudden it comes back to bite us. The first goal with Van der Ven, obviously slipping over. I think it was Romero doesn't really help the situation by looking to go and engage in the ball as opposed to trying to drop off. The second goal, I still to this day cannot understand what Pedro Porro is trying to do at that point. You've literally just conceded. You're away at Newcastle. The crowd are up. Just hoik it, rosette it, and yeah, just go from there basically. The third goal and the fourth goal just annoyed me, to be honest, because it's so avoidable, and then obviously the third one is again Van der Ven relying too much on his pace probably and not understanding his opponent is probably the best way I'd describe it. So that's kind of me breaking down the goals. To be fair.
I was going to say that's probably enough of that. We don't need to relive that because, again, I think it was the last goal that was zonal marking. And I know me and you, and on this show and in previous times we've spoken about, we just need to sack that off because it's causing us so many problems. But obviously that was annoying. But Nelson, for coming from a Spurs fan, you're losing 4-0, but then you go and see Arsenal go and lose 2-0 to Villa. So what did you dissect or make of that game for you?
In the words of Didier Drogba after the Champions League semi-final against Barcelona, it was a disgrace. It was a disgrace. Obviously, I'm not going to swear, but as people understand the vibes, because it was very bad. And first of all, I think you have to give Aston Villa a lot of credit. Emery has outclassed Arteta probably every match that he's faced him tactically. And I have to give Emery credit because I really like this Villa side. I actually really like them this season. I love what Emery's done with them, considering obviously he had a stint in the Premier League with Arsenal and he's now come back, and actually I think he's got the right players he needs to basically, put his philosophy in. And I think that second half really showed the difference. And Villa, that second half, won't get enough credit, but I think they were outstanding and I think they absolutely deserved that result. I think anybody that watched that game might have thought Arsenal had an off day. But in my opinion, I think Villa really showed up the second half and they played with so much bravery and confidence. And you need that as well when you're coming to, the Emirates and, it looks like the game's against you. But they really took the game by the scruff of the neck second half. And, I mean, Arsenal were quite lazy. Arsenal were lazy in defence. Zinchenko, I don't even want to start with Zinchenko because he was probably the root of our problems in defence. I just feel like there's not much defensive stability at the back compared to if there's Tomiyasu or Kiwior. The only difference is Zinchenko offers that extra man in the field, which Arteta really likes, which hopefully, follows the likes of Pep and what they eat. So he likes to do it 50, but I think Villa just need to be given credit. And the message was, because I said that, when Oli went through for that second goal and he dinked it, I said that is one of the deadliest, disgusting daggers I've seen. Like, for that finish to have happened, and obviously Wes having sent me something else in regards to Delhi doing something quite similar a couple of years. It seems to happen against us. I just seen all these disgusting chips. But I think it was a very bad day for North London in general. And I'm hoping it doesn't happen again. Because I was actually surprised again, back to the game against Newcastle. I was actually surprised by the result. I didn't think it was going to be 4-0, considering that last season when you guys went there, it was obviously a hammering. And I know you guys were trying to make up for that performance, and I guess it just didn't go your way. But it was a bad day at the office for North London on Saturday. It was a bad day.
It really was. And that's the thing. Obviously, there's been lots of chat, and we'll get into Champions League a bit later on. But where's obviously that chat for that top 4 space? I've seen fans saying that they'd wanted Villa to they wanted Arsenal, to win the game. And I think to myself, I'm a Spurs fan. I never want Arsenal to win, regardless if it means that we go to Champions League. I mean, are you the same? Well, obviously, when we were watching that Villa Arsenal game, were you in the same sort of boat of like, yes, go on, Villa?
Listen, when Ollie Watkins dinked it over Raya, I went absolutely ballistic. I was like, that finish was outrageous from Ollie Watkins. And I have to say, I caught up on Monday Night Football, and there was a very, very good, in fact, detailed analysis from Jamie Carragher on how Emery had basically set up Villa to combat Arsenal's high press and the fact and then Arsenal was sort of all over the place. So I personally encourage anybody to go and watch that piece of analysis, because it was absolutely brilliant in terms of just breaking down how Emery, Nelson mentioned about Emery tactically doing a number on Arteta. That was the main reason. It was because basically, to summarise it, I'm not going to spoil it for everybody, but to summarise it, basically, Villa used their goalkeeper a lot in their build-up, and, they invited Arsenal on to them to then try and pierce through them. But like I say, the analysis there from Carragher was wicked. But no, to go back to your original point, Holly, when would I want Arsenal to win? Like, even tonight, yes, an Arsenal win might help with the coefficients, but I don't really care. Like, I want Kane to bag a hat trick, so I can give Nelson loads of abuse. Do you know what I mean? That's just it. I want Arsenal to go out. I don't want them to go any further in the Champions League. Are you mad?
No, and I think that's the thing. I think, obviously, as we know, Twitter's a place where we see some very wild thoughts and opinions and feelings. But I think majority of Spurs fans are obviously hoping the worst for Arsenal, which Nelson brings us on, obviously, to tonight, and obviously that game against Bayern Munich. How are you kind of feeling? Because obviously it was 2-2. We spoke last week that maybe, obviously, the bit at the end should it have been, maybe not. I don't know. But tonight, do you think you'll be able to get the job done?
I'm going to have to put that Villa game to one side, because it's just all about kind of resetting. Like, these are professional football players at the end of the day. And I think one thing is that, you've got one game you've lost. Cool. It's happened. You just have to kind of, regain your focus for the next game. So I really hope that the manager has actually got the players focused for tonight. It's really big. I think if we make the semi-final, it'll probably be the first time since, I believe, 2009 that we've made the final. And that's a really long time ago, considering the history of the Champions League and how we were consistently, qualifying. But I'm actually fancying today. I actually think I've already made a prediction in my head. I feel like it's going to go to extra time. I don't want it to go to extra time, but I feel like it's going to go to extra time. And if anything is compared, especially what happened last night, I'm actually hoping for like an entertaining game. Like, even though it would be really nice to hammer Bayern Munich 3-0, 4-0, or at least, get a clean sheet there, I think it's going to be an entertaining game. So I think it's going to be goals galore, similar to the first leg. So I am predicting a an Arsenal win. I hope we win. I just really hope that we set up really well to defend, especially the pacey wingers that Bayern have. I think that's going to be really tough. You've got Gnabry, who I believe is fit, and Sane, who was rampant that first leg. So we'll have to see. It depends how the manager's set up. But I do think that Arsenal do have it in them to actually pull it off tonight. So we'll see.
I was going to say, I know you're Arsenal, Nelson, but I'd be the same. I'd never sit there and say my team are going to lose. So as much as I hate you, I'm not going to wish you luck. But yeah, we'll move on to Wes, because obviously we're all sitting here as Spurs fans thinking we want to see Harry Kane bag a hat-trick or get on the goal sheet again tonight. And obviously with everything that's happened in the Bundesliga this year, you're kind of hoping that he's going to get on to the next kind of stage of this competition, potentially win a trophy. So are you sat here thinking that Harry Kane will potentially put goals in the net tonight?
Well, put it this way, Holly. After the first leg, Nelson messaged me and said there are 3 guarantees in life: death, taxes, and Harry Kane scoring against Arsenal. So it's going to happen. It's likely to be a penalty, let's be honest. But yeah, Harry's bagging tonight. Of course he is. It's against Arsenal, and I think every Spurs fan is wanting him to do well, because we know sort of what he had to effectively sort of put up with for a good few years at Spurs, and we know it wasn't good enough for us as fans, but also we recognise his quality and we go, you probably got let down, H, but you did your bit, so fair play to you. I think this Bayern side have got a point to prove because of their league situation and the fact that they have effectively crumbled in the league, in the Bundesliga. So they've definitely got a point to prove. And it was interesting, actually. I watched the overlap with Eric Dyer and Gary Neville, and Dyer has sort of said the confidence that he feels within this Bayern team of like, okay, yeah, they're coming to Bayern Munich now. They're coming to the Allianz. And he's like, whoa, okay. Like, he's never really been in a situation where he's felt like that before, or been in an environment within a team where they go like, right, yeah, they got to come to us. So, we're not that fussed about the first leg result. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good game tonight. I think the City Real Madrid one's going to be equally as good. And it's a shame that they're on at the same time, because I think everybody, and we said this last week, would love to watch both. We'd love to watch Jude v Phil. We'd love to watch Kane v Arsenal. But it is what it is. So, I think we're all hoping that Kane can at least add the Champions League. And I think that then justifies his move a bit more. Whereas if he doesn't win anything, it's a case of, okay, well, why did you move then? Because you effectively weren't winning things at Tottenham. You've gone to Bayern expecting to win things and you haven't won anything. So does that really justify your move? And I know I've said it plenty of times, Kane in this Spurs team would have 30 odd goals, period. Like, it's not even in doubt the amount of chances we create and the quality of chances we create. So yeah, that's sort of that for me, to be fair.
You make a great point, obviously, with those other games on tonight. But I want to come to you, Nelson, because obviously before we move on to the other Champions games that happened yesterday, I want to talk about the fact that obviously I'm not tempting fate, but say if Arsenal do lose tonight, obviously losing to Villa, and the games that you've got coming up, do you think that could potentially derail your season, or do you think you're just going to try and take every game as it comes with Arteta, like trying to say and invoke that to the team?
Well, it's a good question, Holly. I do think we should take it every game as it comes. But the problem is the players know how this feels, especially if they lose tonight to Bayern Munich. Last season, we had, it was the 2 games against West Ham and Southampton in the title running that ultimately kind of, derailed our season. And if we lose these 2 games, we're basically out of the Champions League, and you could effectively say out of the Premier League title race. And I think that's going to be quite demoralizing for the players. Now, if we do lose, I think it's down to the players to change, the narrative for that. I think it's down to them, the manager. If they still believe, then obviously they'll push until the final game of the season. But it does just, bring shades of last season and how, we sort of crumbled around this same period of time. Hence why I think the Villa defeat for many Arsenal fans was quite shocking, because heading up to this kind of period last season, this is where we crumbled. So we thought things would be different, but reality just hit us in the face and decided that we shouldn't deserve any sort of glory. So it is what it is. But we'll have to wait and see, Holly. But I am still confident going into tonight's game.
I think that's the thing, like trying to take my Spurs hat off it is like you said, you have to take every game as it comes, and this is a massive game for you, especially obviously in European competitions. But yeah, I don't want to say hope, but without my Spurs hat on, you do kind of hope, if you are an Arsenal fan, that you can kind of try and carry on this form and kind of forget about Villa. But that's enough about me talking about Arsenal. It feels weird. We're going to move on to obviously last night's Champions League games and the fact that they were also very, very mental. So Wes, I'm going to come to you because obviously it was PSG 4 and then Barca 1. And then we also had Dortmund 4 and Atletico 2, which I think is probably the big major shock because I believe they were behind and they managed to come back. So far away, Wes, what did you make of those ones?
Yeah, I caught the second half actually of the Barcelona PSG game. So obviously the red card for Rayo had happened at that point. But I was watching this Barcelona team and I'm there going, what on earth are you? Like, you know, when you think of Barcelona, especially in the last sort of 15 years, you think of that team that just dominates the ball like no matter what. Like, I think you think back to that almost that super team that Pep had, and even if they did go down to 10 men, it was like, okay, whatever, we'll still deal with this lot, no problem, see you later. But this Barcelona team last night looked bang average, and it was like they tried to play possession type football but couldn't do it, and it was just like you're looking at like Lewandowski, one of the top strikers of the last decade, looks finished. Like he looks like he can't move. You've got, I think they had Frankie de Jong in there, and he was unbelievable at Ajax. Nelson knows my love for Frankie de Jong. Like that's one of my guys, and he looked like all over the shop. And I'm there like, you're looking at the centre backs that can't take the ball, and you're there going, is this Barcelona that I'm watching here, or is this just another team? So it was really, really strange. Credit though to PSG, because I think that's been the major criticism I think of Paris Saint-Germain over the last, again, probably 5-10 years, is when they've got to these big moments, they crumble and they get a bit of a lesson. But they were the ones dishing it out. And Vitinha, what a finish that was as well, by the way, on the edge of the box. But again, criminal from Barcelona, like no pressure on the ball. When do you associate that with Barcelona? Like not having pressure on the ball. So yeah, it was a really strange game, but I think PSG managed the game really well. And obviously Ousmane Dembele was just loving life, getting all the abuse, and he's like, yeah, remember what I did for you guys as well, and you're giving me this, okay. But equally, you know, the scenes of the Dortmund Atletico game, which I think many people would have tipped Atletico. I know me personally, I would have probably tipped Atletico to go through. In that one, I know Oblak made some really good saves at vital times as well when I caught up on the highlights. But yeah, I think now Dortmund are an interesting team because it's probably that team that you would look at and go, okay, if we were to face them in the final, brilliant. We've effectively got away with one, but then, you know, in football and in sport, you never really know. And I think, but Dortmund strike me as that team that everybody would have wanted to play, yet they still have good quality. I mean, you look at someone like Ian Maatsen, who 3 years ago was playing against Accrington Stanley on loan at Charlton from Chelsea, and now he's in a Champions League semi-final. You look at Sancho and Sabitzer. Sancho obviously exiled by United. Sabitzer was on loan there last year. They didn't want to make it permanent, or the year before, sorry. And again, it's like these sort of like almost rejected players are sort of coming in clutch really for Dortmund. You look at Felix Lemaitre, obviously was let go by City. You know, the list kind of goes on with this Dortmund team, and it feels like, you know, it's almost like a team of rejects in the nicest possible way. But because they are effectively rejects, they want to prove something. And they're in a really good environment where Terzic, the manager, just lets them express themselves. And yeah, it was, like I say, I watched the Barcelona PSG game, and that was a cracking watch. But yeah, I think equally, if I'd have tuned in for Dortmund Atletico, I think I'd have been in for a treat myself.
I think that's the magic of the Champions League nights. Obviously, we crave to have them back at White Hart Lane, but Nelson, obviously, the fact that Wes has gone through those two games, for you, was it the fact that Dortmund just managed to somehow pull it back the way they did? And then obviously the scoreline with PSG Barcelona again, it just kind of highlights how big this Champions League is. I know we know that anyway, but it really emphasises that, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so much quality. I think heading into these quarterfinal ties, I don't think anybody expected these scorelines heading into these ties, especially probably the Dortmund Atletico game, considering, you know, how, you know, Atletico set up in defense and we know how stubborn they can be. Diego Simeone is just relentless when it comes to that. So I was really surprised to see these score lines, but I think you have to, like Wes said, you have to give credit to Dortmund and how they performed. I think the manager has given them a lot of freedom to just express, how to kind of, not just giving them the freedom to play. And like you said, a bunch of rejects have just kind of come together. I think PSG, I think the red card changed the game. I think if that red card doesn't happen, I think Barca still have a foot in the game. And I still think you see the tiki-taka possession that they're the most renowned for. And second half, you would expect Xavi to kind of make some adjustments to kind of help Barca to kind of still retain the ball, but at least, kind of be tight and compact. But he lost his head. He got sent off. And I think that resulted in just them kind of crumbling. And I don't think as a manager, and I know he's leaving at the end of the season, I believe, but I think for that to potentially be your last European game for the club that you served, and we know how much he's done as a player, but as a manager as well, I don't think that's a good look for him personally, because I think, the players who are quite a young squad as well, if you look at the average age, you got, I think, 17-year-old centre-back who played last night as well, and then Yamin Lamal, who was sacrificed to come off because of the red card. This is a really young side, like very, very young side. So I was quite surprised by his actions, but you got to give credit to Luis Enrique, how he set up for that second half. I think he rallied the PSG troops. And it's going to be entertaining. This semi-final now between Dortmund and PSG is looking very, very juicy. I actually fancy Dortmund. I know it's early to say, but I actually fancy Dortmund. I think Signal Iduna Park just has this aura about it. And I think that's the 12th man I think Dortmund needed last night to get past Atletico. Same could be said for Parc des Princes, but I don't really know. But I actually fancy Dortmund. But like Wes said, they've got quality. So I would suggest the ties that are happening tonight to not look at the other two teams and think that they've got the Champions League in a bag, because anything can happen. Anything can happen.
I think you're right. And I think that's what we've seen, obviously, from the games last night and what we're potentially going to see tonight. I think we are lined up for some incredible football match. I've said that now. I've probably jinxed it. So let's not go back and rewatch this where I've said that. But like you say, the Champions League does just throw out these crazy games. And I'm really looking forward to Harry Kane banging in some goals tonight. But Wes, obviously, Nelson mentioned the fact some managers obviously deteriorate a little bit in the Champions League. But I want to bring it back to the Prem, because obviously at the weekend we saw that game with Liverpool, and it does seem that things are going a bit array with them at the moment.
That's a shame, isn't it? Almost like shame about the Arsenal, really. It's going to be great when Klopp has his final hurrah and he ends up with a Carabao Cup, because all the Liverpool fans thought he was winning the quadruple. Can I just say, by the way, Adam Wharton, what a baller this kid is. I told you about him, Holly, in January, that somebody needs to get hold of him. And I look at this Palace team as well, and I look at Adam Wharton, Eberechi Eze, Michael Olise, 3 players plucked out the Championship that have taken to the Premier League, and as neutral fans, we've fallen in love with them. Like, we really have. Like, Eze and Olise, they just represent. I mean, Nelson will probably know a bit more than me, but they are like South. Do you know, like in terms of South, they represent South London as an area like really well. They're just techie ballers. Adam Wharton has taken to the Prem like a duck to water. And I really like what Glasner is doing with this Palace team. Changed the playing style a lot. They're a lot more aggressive. They're a lot more on the front foot, as opposed to, sitting in and counter-attacking and relying on 1 or 2 players like they usually were under Roy Hodgson. And I think Palace have done really well with that appointment. And I think if a couple of astute additions here and there, and I think next season we'll see a completely different team. I'm really looking forward to seeing the evolution of this Palace team. We know obviously in the last few years they've changed the recruitment style. They've gone for a much younger profile of player, they don't seem scared to really shop in the Championship to pick players up. But those 3 in particular were 3 that were linked to Tottenham, and you go in, well, why haven't we gone and made that jump and bought them. You know, you could even argue Alex Scott at Bournemouth, who is a massive Spurs fan. Guernsey Grealish is his nickname. Like, why haven't Spurs like pressed the button to say, yes, we're going to take a punt on him now? Probably the last time we did that was for Delhi, in the sense that we took a huge gamble and a huge risk by getting someone from lower down, like the lower leagues in English football. And you could argue it worked for us. So there's proof in the pudding. There is success there. It's just whether Tottenham actually want to do it. And it feels like they don't at this stage, which is really strange. But yeah, this Palace team are slowly becoming a team that I think a lot of people will enjoy watching, especially next season.
I think that's the thing. Obviously, if you think about Liverpool and Palace, you've probably got your money on Liverpool winning, Nelson. What do you think kind of went on with that game? Is it the fact that Wes says it's just the way they're setting up now? Or do you think something's happening at Liverpool in terms of they're crumbling, the sense of obviously they're losing their manager at the end of the season?
I think it's an element of two things. I think, like Wes said, I think you have to really give credit to how Palace set up. I really like what Glasner's doing. So I'm not going to repeat what Wes said, but I agree totally everything that he said in terms of how the future looks for Palace. So I don't think it's no surprise that they actually put in a really good performance. And yes, Adam Morton is an absolute baller. So I just want to put that out there. But I also think the pressure of Liverpool really, especially the players, trying to deliver for Klopp in his final season, I think it's taken a toll on them. I definitely think that, you know, there's a lot of it's really hard to persevere, especially this long in the season when you have a title running against two quality teams as well. And then obviously just winning the Carabao Cup and then obviously getting knocked. I think people forget about the fact that before Palace, they got smacked by Atalanta as well, which probably affected their, you know, morale going into that game too. So I think, yeah, the pressure of trying to, you know, bring back basically all the trophies for Klopp in his last season is proving to take a toll on them. And I think it's not getting the best out of, you know, the likes of Mo Salah. Where was him when you needed, you know, a big game player to kind of, you know, turn up for them? Trent didn't play well. I know Conor Bradley unfortunately went off injured, and I think Dominic, I don't know how to pronounce his name, you're going to have to help me here. But Szoboszlai, I think he went off as well. He's a key player too. But I think in that respect, I think, yeah, the pressure's gotten a lot. They could still recover. Who knows? There's still time. Same. Obviously, we spoke about Arsenal, but there is still time for them to make up for it with the last kind of 6 games remaining. So we'll have to wait and see. But I do think that pressure. I don't think Klopp is putting pressure on the players to win something. I think he just wants them to perform to the best that he knows they can. I think the players, probably as a collective, them being humans and knowing that what the manager's done for the club in these last, 10 plus years, I think they really want to do something for him. And I just think probably the pressure's gotten to them and they just haven't delivered. So I think it's resulted in that Palace defeat.
Klopp's not probably putting pressure on though because he's run out of energy. That's probably what it is.
I was going to say, like, obviously us being Spurs and Arsenal fans, it's like it's not a bad thing. Right, it is what it is. But like
we might win at Anfield now, Holly. Now Klopp's on his way out. We might win at Anfield. That is
very true. It's very true. But yeah, with Spurs at the moment, I don't know if I'd put that far. I think we need a bit more than Klopp just having a bit of a time for it to work in our favour. But you never know. But before we obviously say our goodbyes, I do want to talk about the fact that Spurs are on their way to Wembley, Wes. And I think it's an amazing achievement. And not just for Spurs, but for women's football in general. The fact that I can now sit here and say my club are going to Wembley. It might not be the men, but it don't matter. It's Spurs. And that does make me feel really, really proud.
Yeah, I think it's a huge moment for the football club, but like the women's side of it in particular. Obviously the first time that Spurs women have got to an FA Cup final, and I know I've been battered not only by you, Holly, but other people of messages. Are you going? Are you going to get me a ticket? Relax, calm down. So yeah, it's just, but the person that I feel unbelievably sorry for is Grace Clinton. Because she is a baller. And if people don't know about Grace Clinton, get to know about Grace Clinton. Put it this way, she's breaking into the England team with your Stanways, your Walshes, your Ella Toons. Like, that's difficult in itself because those three are arguably like the 3 best players in the world in their position. And Grace Clinton's coming in and, dropping absolute clinics when she plays for England. So it's a fantastic achievement for the women's team and for women's football to see new teams as well coming into and getting into finals. Like, for how long has it just been your sort of City, Arsenal, Chelsea, like, and a bit of a rotation between them three in terms of fighting it out for trophies and honours. And now obviously this year we're going to have a new name, because I believe it's United's first time in there as well, so it's going to be a new name on the FA Cup. And yeah, hopefully the girls get the job done. And if that then leads on to bigger and better things as well, like, we can start attracting bigger and better players to our women's team. Obviously the infrastructure's there in terms of the training complex, certain games being played at the stadium, and hopefully that will become a norm relatively soon, or the girls get a purpose-built stadium. I know Brighton are doing some really good work with that for their women's team. I know they have their own training complex as well, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a great time, I think, to get involved. My only issue and disappointment, Holly, is with the FA, because how are you expecting to grow the women and the profile of the game and get more girls to want to be footballers if you're only effectively giving each team 12,000 each tickets? So if you look at Wembley, it's probably going to be the bottom tier, and maybe Club Wembley it's going to be open. Like, how can you, like I say, expect to grow and build the profile in the game? You're shooting yourselves in the foot here. For me, if you're the FA, like, open the full stadium and then see it get full. There's been proof that if you put it out there, people will come. We've seen that with the Lionesses in particular, and we've seen that at the Emirates. We've seen it at Stamford Bridge, like 40-odd thousand going there. Old Trafford, 40-odd thousand there. Like, come on, FA, do better. These girls deserve better. The stories that you hear, their journeys, what they've had to go through, many part-time to then go into full-time and give up jobs to pursue careers being footballers. Like I say, just do better, because they deserve it. They deserve to be treated on the same platform, for me, as the male counterparts, because they are footballers, regardless of whether they are male or female.
And I think the thing is, because obviously for me, it's how do I word this? If people, you only get in football, in sport and et cetera, if people will come, you'll get the money, you'll get the revenue. But like you said, Wes, we've seen that people will come to these games. So there's no argument of, well, if we put these tickets out, people aren't going to buy them. Because, Nelson, I think with this, obviously, I'm taking a bit off topic now, but obviously with Spurs getting to the final, it means that, like Wes says, it does open the door open for more fans, not just to grow in the sport of women's football, but to grow the sport of football in general. Because when I was growing up, I mean, I couldn't name you Spurs women players, or I couldn't name you many England women's players, because it wasn't as accessible. Whereas now you've got players like Beth Mead, Beth England, that you can see on people's shirts in the streets. And for me, that's amazing. So, Nelson, I know it's not your club, but what do you make of, obviously, Spurs getting to the final?
Oh no, I have to give Spurs credit for making the final. What's funny is that they were selling tickets for the final, and I was very confident that Arsenal were going to make it. And now I realize that my ticket means I'm going to have to watch Spurs in the final. And don't get me wrong, I think it was like you have to beat what's in front of you. I actually want to give a shout out to Jessica Naz as well. I watched her in the North London derby at the Emirates, and I thought she gave our defenders a real handful. And I kept telling my friend on the day, I was like, watch out for her. She was like, no, you're talking rubbish. But she did cause some problems on the day. So alongside Grace Clint, alongside Beth England, I think I wanted to give Jessica her flowers as well. I think it's really good like that. I mean, I agree with Wes. The FA have to do better to make it accessible. I think 12,000 is ridiculous. With the stadium that Wembley is and what it can do. I think we've seen what it can do. I've gone to every women's home game I can to support the team. And I think, like you said, Holly, it's just really good for the sport of football, because they deserve to be on the same sort of pedigree as these male counterparts. They are very good techie ballers. Like, I can show you right now, my phone is a wallpaper of Ella Toon for playing for United. I shouldn't have that, but I have it because she's a baller, and I love Ella Toon as a baller. So like, I'm obviously like, you could see the effect it's now having because it's become more accessible on social media, on the broadcasting rights, and Sky buying it and making it accessible for people to watch it there. So I think Spurs have done a great job, and the fact that it is against United, because it could have been against Chelsea, and we know how good Chelsea are. But the fact that it's against United, honestly, I actually fancy you guys. You guys can get something out of that game. Like, I'm taking my Arsenal hat off, and I actually think that you guys can actually get something out of that game. I just really hope that the absence of Grace doesn't affect this, how you guys have been playing all season. So it's going to be a good final. I think it's going to be a really good final. But yeah, FA needs to get those tickets sorted. Like, more tickets need to be sold. I think more should be allocated for each club, because I think there would be a huge reception just for the fact that women's football has just been growing. Like, we've seen it the last 2-3 years. I think credit to Lionesses as well. We know what they've done to inspire the next generation. But yeah, I am a big fan. So I would like to point out that Spurs did a great job to obviously win and then make it to the final.
And I'm glad you mentioned Jessica Naz, because I think there was a time in the game where I was like, right, she needs to come off because she's wasting so many chances, and then 10 minutes later she scores. So that's why I am never commenting again. Or actually, maybe I should, because then things happen. But no, it was a really, really good game. It's great for women's football and football in general. So hopefully Spurs can go get the job done, and the FA listen, and hopefully up the ticket allocation, because that would be brilliant. But guys, it's been amazing tonight. We've dissected so many different things. It's been a lot of fun. But obviously, we have got the big Champions League games coming up, so I do want to say our goodbyes. Get ready for that one, so we can watch what happens in those two. So we'll do our goodbyes. But before we do, like I always like to say, because this show is sponsored by the amazing Kofa. So Wes, I'm going to let you do it one more time for me.
All right, so Kofa, or Kickoff Football Academy Milton Keynes, is a football coaching company or business that helps young boys and girls across Milton Keynes and surrounding areas with their footballing skills and ability. We have lots and lots of different sessions, as you can see on screen. So if your child wants to be the next Dele Alli or the next Leah Williamson, then please get in touch with us. We would be delighted to help your son or daughter along their footballing journey.
Lovely, jubbly. So that leaves us to say our goodbyes. So first of all, Nelson, thank you again for joining us tonight. Like I say, I'm not going to say good luck in the Champions League game tonight, but where can everybody find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at ntumba25. That's NTUMBA 25, ntumba 25.
Perfect stuff. And Wes, I leave it to you to do the honours, to do your outro. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, so Twitter's at Wezo10, the unofficial Moussa Dembele fan account, as everybody knows by now. And then it's Instagram, nearly lost my train of thought there. Instagram is at Wezo32, usually at Spurs games. I will be at Derby Day. Of course I will be. Good luck trying to prize me away from that. So obviously that is our next game, Holly, so I will definitely be there. Hopefully you will be as well, so we can have a little catch up. And then we've got Kofa, or Kickoff Football Academy, across Instagram, Facebook and TikTok. And then because you decided to bully me into doing football content, it's at WM32 Football on Instagram, TikTok and YouTube as well for that.
Lovely, jubbly. So make sure you go check these guys' stuff out and their content. I also want to say there'll be no Holly's Hotspurs live, because obviously there's no game on Monday, but there will be another sort of video. But next Wednesday, you need to set this in your diaries, because we will be joined by Albert, so Nelson doesn't feel on his own when we preview the North London derby. So it is set to be a spicy one. So make sure that you are all dialed in for that one next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. So that leaves you nothing to say, but come on, you Spurs, and see you next time.